Am I the butthole for not punishing my child after he corrected the teacher? My 10-year-old son had to watch some Snoopy cartoon in class during which Woodstock eats a roast turkey. The teacher told the class that this is fictional, and that birds don't eat other birds. My son corrected her and said something along the lines of, "My uncle trains falcons to hunt other birds at the airport to protect the airplanes." The teacher got upset, said he was disrespectful and talking back, and sent him to the principal's office. I got called and they explained the situation, that he corrected the teacher. I said, "Well, was he right?" And the principal said, "It doesn't matter. This was rude and you need to teach your son show some respect to authority." And I told the principal, "I'm not going to punish my son or make him apologize if he was right. Maybe your teacher should be better educated." The principal looked a bit shocked and just told me to leave. Fine by me. Really reconsidering this school. Respect authority. They revealed their true agenda. Not education, obedience. Not the butthole. Yep, from now on the school administration is going to watch Ops Kid like hawks. Birds of a feather flock together. Original poster ought to check their nest egg to see if they can afford to migrate to a better school. Not the butthole. Edit, added, migrate at the suggestion of user Agnamica. Thanks for the awards as well, fellow Redditors. Reddit link. Damn it. Take my up vote and cluck off. Agreed. What the administration did was really foul. It's a good thing original poster didn't chicken out when it came time to defend his kid. Not the butthole. You should all be careful flocking to make so many ridiculous puns. You bunch of yellow-bellied sapsuckers. I saw someone online say before, sometimes people use respect to mean treating someone like a person, and sometimes they use respect to mean treating someone like an authority. And sometimes people who are used to being treated like an authority say, "If you won't respect me, I won't respect you," and they mean, "If you won't treat me like an authority, I won't treat you like a person," and they think they're being fair but they aren't. And it's not okay. From /user Kaizoku1 I'd pull your kid if I were you. The fish rots from the head. Reddit link. Perfect description of respect. And unfortunately, it's not just schools that do this. Original poster is definitely not the butthole for teaching her kid to stand up for truth over meaningless authority. Where does it say that original poster is female? They're talking about their kid's school, and we all know only moms get involved with their kids and the schools. I told my kid's school to call my husband since my phone was broken. They called me and left messages instead. When I get there, "Did you get our calls? Some stuff happened. Did you call her dad's phone? I don't have a phone right now. No, we left you a message." Traditionally, when gender is not clear, we default to the masculine. Recently, we have started to default to the gender-neutral they, but there is no valid reason not to choose the feminine when gender is unclear, as it is just as likely to be correct, as is the masculine. This is true, and it does make me grin a little every time I see she used in instructional manuals. But let's be real, the reason op's been assumed female is because this involves a child. I want to be really explicit that this isn't to say anyone who assumed op's gender as female is a bad person. It's just the kind of bias it's worth taking the time to notice and acknowledge. Slightly more likely. Not by a lot, because there's a slightly higher percentage of girls and women than there are boys and men. Singular they isn't that recent though. It has been used for a long time. People are just more upset about it now, in large part due to bigotry towards gender nonconforming folk. I tend to assume woman by default often. Probably because I'm a woman. Yeah, I used to default to the masculine neutral as per the formal style books from my school days, but I've switched to alternating. Interestingly, he is still much less likely to be called out than she, which to me only proves that I should be using she more. I can't comfortably use singular they. There's a few contexts where I slip it in to try to get used to it, but it really doesn't work in my mind. Why does this even matter, lol? Because there are trolls who love to go from thread to thread, calling out randomized pronoun use with the implication that the person who chose a random pronoun for the sake of simplicity is a dick. I see it a lot lately. Trolls just like to get people bickering for their entertainment. Or it would be a crusader who wants to break the binary by constantly butting in and derailing conversations to rail against gendered pronouns. But that doesn't promote equity. It only antagonizes people who are already allies. So again, trolling. Speaking as a woman, the attitude of the principal screams man in power speaking to a woman who he deems lesser. Yeah, your kid sounds cool, and he was sharing some facts with the teacher in class. The teacher got mad because she lost face. In her mind, the principal reinforced that the teacher's ego was more important than factual information and that students are not allowed to have independent thoughts. Find a new school ASAP. Yes. As a teacher, I've been corrected by kids for my lack of information or narrow perspective. I thank them for sharing with me and highlight that we all have so much to learn from each other. This should have been handled better. As educators, we are not expected to know everything but to teach critical thinking. Original poster's kid was demonstrating a skill that should have been reinforced. You're right, the teacher's ego got in the way. Agree 1,000,000% with this. Done trainings, and if someone catches a mistake I made, I thank them publicly for letting me know. This. It could have been handled so easily by the teacher. That's interesting, Jimmy. Maybe we'll talk more about Birds of Prey later. Anyway, class, about the cartoon. With no one being the wiser. Lack of tact on Johnny's part? Perhaps. But he's 10 damned years old. And the teacher is the adult and professional in this instance. Like kids being know-it-alls is an occurrence that a teacher would never anticipate and plan for? I've never thought about it like that before, but that is so damned accurate. Info: your son is 100% correct, but if he said this in a disrespectful manner, tone/volume/eye-roll/ etc., and then that needs to be corrected. Edit. It's amazing what my simple and general reply has caused below, with people making many assumptions and accusations in multiple directions. /edit. I was going to ask the same thing. You can be correct and still be in butthole. No, Walter, you're not wrong. You're just a butthole. The dude. Calmer than you are. I was curious about this as well, but from what it sounds like, he not only corrected the teacher, he explained how he knew. That doesn't sound particularly rude. True, but this is being relayed from the parent's perspective, which is likely primarily based on the son's version of the situation and whether there was tone/volume/eye-rolling/ etc. The point wasn't about content. You can make the same point respectfully or disrespectfully based on tone, word choice, etc. It also depends on what else was said when making the point. For example, if I had started this comment with "you clearly don't know how to read because," then the tone would have been totally different even if the substance was the same. I'm not saying Op's son did anything like that, but that's why more info might be needed. A. The fact that the principal only said that he corrected the teacher, and said nothing about his tone, implies that Op's son said it respectfully. Granted, original poster could have left that out of the story, but, as long as they're being truthful, I'm pretty sure it was only about being corrected. Op says that the principal just said, he corrected the teacher, but also that the teacher got upset, said he was disrespectful and talking back, so presumably the principal said more than just he corrected the teacher. I don't know. I wouldn't be shocked if the school administration was making a big deal about Op's son respectfully pointing out a factual inaccuracy with the teacher's statement, but I also wouldn't be shocked to learn that a 10-year-old didn't make that correction in the most respectful manner. Yeah, that's a good point. I like to give kids the benefit of the doubt, though, because I know that there are teachers that are on permanent power trips, and, no matter how respectfully a kid says it, those types of teachers will always be offended when they're corrected. Some adults have fragile egos and lack the humility to admit that they do not know everything. They consider any form of challenge to the information they present as an attack. I got in major trouble in the 3rd grade for constantly correcting my teacher during math lessons. They were clear it wasn't about the corrections, it was about the fact I was rude as F. I said things like, "Why do you even bother trying to teach math if you're so bad at it? And can't you find someone else to teach math? Did you really go to college?" I was a complete little crap about it. But 9-year-old me was super pissed off I had to sit through math lessons with someone who didn't understand fractions at all. Eventually I got pulled from the class, in no small part because, at one point, the teacher told me I was never allowed to speak during math lessons. My mom found that unacceptable and pushed to move me to a different class, with a teacher who understood fractions. In retrospect, it was a clear everyone sucks here situation between myself, my truly terrible at math teacher, and the principal who saw nothing wrong with employing a teacher who was that bad at math. I said things like, "Why do you even bother trying to teach math if you're so bad at it? And can't you find someone else to teach math? Did you really go to college?" I shouldn't laugh, but this is funny as F to envision coming from a 9-year-old. Like original poster's boy though, I've also been sent to the principal's office for being a pedant, so correcting grown-ass adults and not respecting their authority is part of my youth. Was the math teacher a sports ball coach? Sounds like a little kid wanting to talk about his own experience. I'm not sure that matters in regards to Op's question. It is the school's job to communicate the issue to original poster and the child. If the child exhibited any of the behaviors you mentioned and the school wanted to correct those behaviors, then that is what they should have brought up. They brought up an unreasonable expectation instead. Original poster responded appropriately with the information she was given. Also, unless the behaviors you mentioned are a regular pattern of behavior for the kid, I would think very poorly of any teacher who could not handle the correction without sending the kid to the principal's office. I agree, and honestly, I think there's a lot of context that's missing. Not saying that it's impossible, but I just find it hard to believe that both the teacher and principal are punishing a 10-year-old over something as minor as saying other falcons hunt other birds. I've often found way too many parents think their kids is the most perfect child on the planet and that they could do no wrong, and I have a feeling this is one of those situations. Unfortunately, I've seen cases like this multiple times, so it's perfectly believable to me. My daughter was even respectful enough to wait until after class to talk to the teacher about the mistake he made in explaining the atomic model. 2 years later, and the entire administration still considers her a problem kid. And my experience is that it's typically the parents who don't want to admit their child is not the perfect angel. Now, are there cases where it happens? Sure, but based upon my experience, typically it's more coming from the parents not wanting to fault their child and would rather say there's something wrong with the teacher, coach, or youth leader. I find it incredibly easy to believe. There are some teachers out there who are very focused on compliance and deference to authority. It just takes one admin with the same philosophy and you get this sort of situation. It's not uncommon. And I've seen plenty of parents not willing to admit that their kids are not the perfect little angel they claim to be, way more common than teachers that are just focused on compliance and deference. I too have seen endless examples like this. It's completely believable to me. One teen I know even taped his teachers to prove it to his parents, because his own parents couldn't believe teachers would be like they, though he had to be doing something provocative even if he didn't realize it. But nope. Schools prioritize compliance to an alarming degree, and it's a systemic issue. There are lots of wonderful teachers who aren't like this, but it's more than just a few bad apples that are. This is so important. I've had parents complain to me about so many things that their children inaccurately report to them. They get up in arms because my child said he just asked to use the pencil sharpener. Then we inform them that another child had just asked to go to use it first. There is only one electric pencil sharpener, and their child became so upset at not getting to go first that they pushed the other child onto the floor. This crap happens constantly. I'm guessing something similar happened here. Kid interrupted the teacher or another kid while they were talking, probably not for the first time that day, or said it in a disrespectful way. Actually, that's a stupid thing to say because birds do eat other birds, I know because. Or said it in a way that was upsetting to the other children. I've seen a falcon eat the guts out of a bluebird. And the teacher was asking them to stop. There's so much missing context to this story. I'm always so skeptical of parents' posts about their school-aged kids on here because I can count on one hand the number of parents I've had who have acknowledged that their children are unreliable narrators. The fact that the original poster admitted to saying, "Maybe your teacher should be better educated," as a response to the principal saying their child was being disrespectful is a huge red flag for me. I will fully admit that I have gone to a conference ready for war. Fortunately, I had just barely cooled down enough to ask some clarifying questions and found out that I had only received a very small piece of the full story. There was a lengthy conversation about selective omission of facts when we got home. I feel like even if Op's kid was a bit rude, or was speaking without permission / raising his hand or something, the teacher still overreacted. I remember when I was in school and we were learning about a subject I was super interested in, I kept popping in with random facts. My teacher would say, "I really appreciate your enthusiasm in this subject, but please be sure to raise your hand next time." Other times they'd correct kids and say, I'm really glad you wanted to share that with the class, but in the future please word it in a more school-appropriate way. You could even use it as a learning lesson for the class. I feel like over one incident it's strange that the teacher couldn't handle it in class and sent the kid to the principal and got the parent involved over something so small. If it was something extreme where the kid was cursing or being incredibly rude, I'm sure the principal would have mentioned it. I don't know about schools you've had to work with, but I have yet been to one where the principal has time to call in a parent because of a simple class interruption. We won't know though because we are reading the words of the parent of the child who obviously left out lots of information passed between her and the principal. Some schools have authoritarian teachers who will get mad if you open your mouth just to breath. I get that. But that is also why I included, in bold, but if the child was rude or disrespectful to the teacher, it needs to be fixed at home. Not doing so is what has caused so many problems in public schools now. Kids think they are in charge because their parents will get sassy with the principal if they are called in. As a teacher, I was wondering the same thing. Does this kid have a history of constantly correcting his teacher in a disrespectful manner? Then it's a problem. I've taught kids like this. The first few times, it's fine. After that, it starts to become a problem because the kid begins to nitpick every single thing you say. I'm thinking there is probably more to this story than the parent is telling us. This is a huge missing piece of info. I teach, but I'm also not an expert on everything, and it sounds like the uncle in this case is. I love hearing stories like this from my kids because it connects them to what we're learning. Also, if it came down to how a kid said something to me in class that's an issue, I'd handle myself with a parent and not involve administration. But that's just me. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to be the first to know about Red Rabbit Reader's new videos. If you like our videos, please like them on YouTube and share them with your friends. We welcome your comments below. Press to start another of our videos.